He'd been driving for hours under the buzz of fluorescent freeway lights, the kind that flicker just enough to make your eyes ache. The night air was thick with the smell of gasoline and distant rain, windows down just a crack to let in something cooler than the recycled AC. It was one of those late-night shifts, 2 a.m., dead quiet, barely any pings, when she showed up. Her pickup location was on the edge of the city, near an unfinished housing development where the street lamps weren't even installed yet. She stood there, backlit by his headlights, not moving until he unlocked the doors. Her face was pale, framed by jet black hair, and her voice was low and flat when she said the address, somewhere out past the county line. He didn't think much of it at first. Just another weird ride, he told himself. But the second she slid into the back seat, something in the car changed. The air turned heavier, warmer, like someone had shut all the windows and turned off the world outside. At first, everything felt oddly calm, like the kind of silence that settles in just before a thunderstorm. The guest house was quiet, too quiet for how many people were supposed to be staying there. The walls were paper thin, but the guy never heard anyone else. No creaking floorboards, no late-night footsteps, no muffled conversations. Just the hum of the old fridge in the kitchen and the occasional wind rattling the back windows. The girl next door kept mostly to herself, but she'd pop up in strange ways. Once, he caught her standing in the kitchen in the dark, staring at the microwave like she was waiting for it to speak. Another time, she knocked softly at his door just past midnight and asked if he wanted to go for a walk, barefoot, even though the pavement outside was cold and damp with fog. She always smelled like rust, like old coins and wet metal, and her clothes never seemed to change. Same gray hoodie, same black leggings every single day. She kept a notebook with her, always scribbling in it, but angled it away so no one could peek. He thought maybe she was just eccentric, maybe grieving, maybe dealing with something. But then things started going missing. A sock, his shaving razor, a photo from his wallet. The guest house owner shrugged it off, said people misplaced stuff all the time. The turning point came when he noticed the door to her room was never locked when she left, but somehow always locked from the inside. One night, he walked past and noticed her door was open just a sliver. Inside, there was no bed, no bags, just dozens of paper scraps taped to the walls. Handwritten phrases like, "Don't let him know," and "eyes open even when closed," were scrawled all over in red pen. As he stepped closer, the door creaked open wider, but the air shifted, like it wasn't just him breathing in that hallway anymore. That's when he saw it. A Polaroid of himself, asleep, face partially turned to the camera, taped dead center on the wall. He didn't remember opening the door, just the sudden weight of realizing he was standing inside her room, breathing shallow, heart hammering so loud it felt like it echoed off the walls. The smell hit him first, thick, musty, metallic, like blood dried into old wood. The floor was covered in worn carpet, crusted in patches, and every inch of the walls was lined with photos. Not just of him, but other men, all asleep, all from nearly the same angle. Different beds, different rooms, but the same vacant expressions. Their faces blurred, scratched out with something sharp. Some had dates scrawled underneath. One photo had a dark, reddish stain in the corner, like something had seeped into the paper and dried. He turned to leave, panic thick in his throat, but the hallway was darker than before, almost black. Behind him, the click of the doorknob twisting made his spine seize. She was there, standing in the doorway, eyes wide and glassy, holding something that caught the little bit of light. A pair of scissors, long and old-looking, the metal dulled at the edges like they'd seen too much use. She didn't say anything, just stepped in, 1 foot at a time, closing the door with her back. He lunged, grabbed the edge of the tiny window, yanked it open. Cold air poured in, stinging his skin. As she rushed him, silent and fast, he dove out, his shoulder smashing into the gravel 2 stories below, a sharp pain bursting through his ribs. He didn't look back. He just ran barefoot down the empty road, the gravel slicing his feet, blood mixing with dirt. Behind him, from that window, a pale hand rested on the sill, unmoving, watching. He never went back for his stuff. The guest house owner claimed there was no record of her ever checking in. No logs, no payment history, just his name on the ledger alone. Cops gave him that flat, tired look, said maybe he was exhausted, stressed, maybe he'd imagined more than he realized. But he knew better. Weeks later, he got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. Him, sleeping in a new bed, in a new city, shot from outside his 2nd-story window. The angle was impossible unless someone had climbed. The photo smelled faintly like rust. For nights after, he slept with the lights on, every creak of the floorboards overhead dragging his nerves closer to the edge. And sometimes, just before he drifted off, he swore he could feel eyes on him, unblinking, patient, waiting for him to sleep again. He never figured out how she got that last photo, or how she knew where he moved. No signs of a break-in, no footprints, nothing on the cameras, just that rust-smelling Polaroid. Sometimes, late at night, he still hears soft tapping on the glass, always at the 2nd-floor window. It was one of those dry Arizona nights where the heat still clings to the pavement like skin even after midnight. The Lyft driver was running back-to-back rides, windows cracked just enough to let in the hum of desert air and the faint smell of creosote. His dashboard lights glowed soft blue, pulsing with each notification. Then her name popped up. No profile picture, no rating, just a pickup at the edge of a half-built suburb where the streetlights hadn't been finished, and everything smelled like dust and hot concrete. She stepped into the car, slow, dressed all in black, her voice low and even, like she was reading a script. Said she needed a ride to a place way past the city line. He figured it was just another oddball night ride. But the second she shut the door, it was like the car got smaller. The air thickened, and the hairs on his arms started to stand. The first 10 minutes were dead silent, just the hum of tires against cracked asphalt and the faint rattle of something loose in the trunk. She didn't look at her phone, didn't fidget, didn't speak. Just sat there in the back seat, perfectly still, staring straight ahead. The only sound she made was her slow, rhythmic breathing. Too slow, almost mechanical. Every time he glanced in the rear view, her eyes caught his like she was already waiting for the stare. Then she started talking. Not small talk. Nothing about the weather, the time, or where she was going. Just offbeat, personal stuff. Asked him if he lived alone. If anyone knew where he was that night. If he ever wondered how easily people could disappear out there, in the desert, with no one ever finding them. Her voice never changed, flat, like she was reading off a list. His hands started to sweat on the steering wheel. The AC was on full blast, but it felt like the heat had crept inside anyway, clinging to his skin like a damp sheet. She changed the drop-off point twice, said she remembered a better spot, quieter. When he hesitated, she leaned forward just enough for him to catch a glimpse of something in her bag. A glint of metal. Not a phone, not a wallet. Looked like a hunting knife. Sleek, long, tucked into a side pocket like it belonged there. They pulled off the main highway and onto a road that wasn't really a road anymore. Half paved, half dirt, lined with rebar and abandoned concrete slabs. The construction site looked dead. Half-built homes swallowed by the dark. She pointed to one house with no windows, no door, just a black rectangle for an entrance. Said that was the place. He parked, heartbeat thudding against his ribs, skin buzzing with static. She stepped out slow, didn't say thanks, just turned toward the house and disappeared inside the shadows like she'd been there before. Something told him to drive. Fast. But when he looked over, the back door was still open. And sitting on the seat was her phone. Lit up, screen cracked, no signal, no apps. Just a photo of him. Taken from behind, earlier that night, at the gas station. He stared at the photo on her phone, heart pounding like a drumbeat inside his chest. The angle was close, too close, like whoever took it was just a few feet behind him. The air in the car felt suddenly suffocating, thick with the scent of dust and something else. Sweat, maybe, or rust. He looked back toward the house. No sign of her, just the black opening in that unfinished structure, swallowing what little moonlight there was. The whole job site was dead silent, not even wind in the brush. That stillness didn't feel natural. It felt like something was holding its breath. Then, from the corner of his eye, he caught movement. She was standing at the edge of the house now, barely visible, head tilted, one hand behind her back. Her face didn't look right. Pale, blank, jaw set in a way that made her mouth look wrong. Too stiff, too wide. Before he could process it, she started walking, slow and direct, straight for the car. He slammed the gear into reverse, tires spitting gravel, headlights slicing through beams and concrete. But she didn't run. She just moved faster, with this unbroken stride that felt inhuman, like her legs weren't bending right. He twisted the wheel hard, turning onto the main road, kicking up clouds of red dirt behind him. In the rearview mirror, she stood in the dust, arms out now, holding something that glinted faintly in the taillights. That long knife. But what sent him over the edge wasn't the blade. It was the second figure that stepped out of the shadows behind her. Taller, slower, also watching. No face he could see, just a shape, waiting. After she vanished into that empty unit across the hall, nothing felt right in the building. The light in the hallway started flickering at night. Always around 3 a.m., the air near her door grew cold, stale, like the inside of a crawl space no one had touched in years. Maintenance finally pried the door open, and the apartment was gutted. No furniture, no dishes, just bare concrete floors and that closet in the back. Inside was a chair facing the wall, and beside it, a notebook filled with obsessively detailed notes. Times he left, what he wore, who he talked to. His name was written over 100 times. One page had a crude sketch of his bedroom, and in it, a figure standing at the foot of his bed. That night, as he lay awake, eyes fixed on the dark, he felt the mattress shift ever so slightly, just enough to make him stop breathing. He never found out who the second figure was, or how she knew where he'd be before he got there. Weeks later, he got another ride request. Same name, same drop-off spot. But this time, The profile photo was him, asleep, taken from inside his own bedroom. The apartment was old, built in the late 60s, with yellowing light switches and creaky floorboards that groaned even when no one was moving. It had this faint smell of old paper and something musty, like rain-soaked concrete that never dried right. The grad student had just moved in. Cheap rent, close to campus, nothing fancy. The kind of place where you didn't ask why the walls were patched over or why the peephole didn't quite line up. Across the hall lived a woman he met on his first night. Late 20s, soft voice, always barefoot. She smiled but never blinked enough. Said her name, but he forgot it almost instantly, like it slipped right through his memory. She always seemed to be home. Every time he stepped out, she was there, watching from her doorway, like she'd been waiting for the sound of his lock turning. At first, it was little things, easy to brush off. The woman across the hall always seemed to open her door at the exact moment he stepped out. Not a second before, not a second after. Just this slow, deliberate creak of her hinges, and there she was, barefoot on the threshold, staring at him like she'd been standing there for hours. She never asked questions, never offered small talk. Just that blank stare, eyes slightly too wide, smile that never touched the corners of her mouth. She'd nod slowly, like she knew something he didn't, and close the door without a word. Then came the noises. At night, through the thin drywall, he started hearing whispers, not clear words, more like breathy syllables pressed right against the wall between their apartments. A dragging sound, soft but steady, like furniture being moved an inch at a time. Once, around 2 a.m., he heard a single knock, dull and slow, on the shared wall behind his headboard. It wasn't loud, but it felt intentional, like it was waiting for him to respond. The building's hallway light began flickering unpredictably. Maintenance said it was electrical, but it always seemed to start just as he passed her door. One evening, he left for class and returned to find his apartment unlocked. Nothing missing, nothing obviously moved, except for one thing. His toothbrush was damp, lying in the sink, and he hadn't used it that day. He set up a camera, something cheap, just to ease his nerves, pointed it at his front door, let it run overnight. The next morning, he checked the footage, expecting nothing. But at 3:11 a.m., the woman appeared. Not from the hallway, but from his door frame, inside the apartment. She stood there for a full 2 minutes, unmoving, staring straight at the lens. Her face was slack, eyes wide, unblinking. She was holding something in her hand, something small and shiny. She slowly reached out, touched the camera lens with her fingertip, and smiled. The footage cut out. He took it to the landlord, who looked confused, said the unit across the hall was empty. No tenant, no lease. Hadn't been rented in over a year. When he insisted, they opened the door together. Inside was nothing but a mattress on the floor, dusty and stained, with one item lying at the foot. A photo of him, sleeping, curled up in bed, taken from inside the room. The walls were covered in tape residue, like photos had once lined them, but had been carefully, obsessively removed. He barely slept that night. Every time he shut his eyes, he saw her face, pale, glassy-eyed, just inches from the camera lens. The image burned into the back of his mind like a brand. He piled furniture against the door, shoved a chair under the handle, and kept the lights on in every room. Still, the apartment felt wrong, too quiet, like the walls were waiting. Around 3 a.m. he heard it, soft, almost polite. A knock, 3 slow taps. Not at the door, at the wall behind his bed. He froze, sheets pulled tight over his chest, barely breathing. The knocking came again. Same rhythm, just a little louder. Then a pause. Then dragging, something heavy being pulled along the floor, right on the other side of the wall. His skin went cold. The sound wasn't coming from her unit. It was coming from inside the wall. Like she was crawling in the crawl space inches from him, separated by drywall and nothing else. He bolted upright, heart hammering in his throat. The lights flickered just once like a warning. He backed into the living room, grabbing his keys, fumbling with his phone. And then, it happened. From the hallway, he heard the lock turning. His lock. Slowly. Deliberately. The chain caught just in time. The door bumped gently against it. Silence. Then a voice, soft and muffled. "You forgot to close your eyes." His knees almost buckled. He staggered backward, eyes locked on the door, where something began to slide under it. Paper. A photo. He picked it up with shaking fingers. It was a picture of him, taken from the foot of his bed. He was sleeping, mouth slightly open, blanket kicked off his feet. In the bottom corner of the photo was a pale hand, inches from his ankle. He didn't scream. He couldn't. His throat closed up, heart slamming against his ribs like it was trying to escape his body. The knocking started again, now at the door, fast, frantic, like fingernails slapping wood. Then silence. Long, terrible silence. He backed into the farthest corner of the apartment and sat there until morning light seeped through the blinds. When he finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. No note, no photo. Just the faint smell of dust and something metallic, like dried blood and rusted keys. He moved out that day. But every so often, when he walks past mirrors or glass doors, he swears he sees her behind him, barefoot, smiling, waiting for him to forget to close his eyes. He left everything behind, clothes, furniture, even his laptop, just tossed what he could into the back of his car and drove through the night until the sun came up somewhere 3 states over. For a while, things were quiet. He rented a small basement unit in a busy neighborhood. No neighbors directly across the hall, no strange knocking. But the unease didn't leave. The silence felt heavier now, too familiar. Sometimes, late at night, he'd wake up certain he wasn't alone. No sound, just the pressure of being watched, like a cold hand brushing the back of his neck. 2 weeks after settling in, a manila envelope showed up on his new doorstep. No stamps, no return address, just his name, printed neatly in pen. Inside was a photo, grainy and dim. It showed him through the slats of his bedroom blinds, curled up in bed, covers halfway kicked off, mouth slightly open. At the bottom corner of the frame, there was the faintest shape of a face. Pale, smiling. The blinds had been shut that night. Locked. Now he sleeps with the lights on, mirrors covered, windows taped shut. But sometimes, just before dawn, he hears the soft creak of hinges in the hallway. And beneath it, something slower, slippered feet dragging gently across old wood. Closer. Every time. He never figured out how she found him again, or how that photo was taken through locked blinds on the 2nd floor. The landlord swears no one lives above him. Still, each morning, he finds faint footprints in the dust just outside his door, always barefoot, always facing in.